Hi, I'm Christina Seston, and you're watching a special edition of The Truth About Diabetes. If you or someone you know has diabetes, this is important television to watch. If your children are overweight or diabetic, this show may contain critical information. My guest today is Dr. Kim, and he's a PhD from MIT. Dr. Kim, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Kim is here to talk about this deadly disease of diabetes. So, Dr. Kim, 17 million cases of diabetes in the U.S. alone.
That's what I heard.
2,500 new cases diagnosed every day. So there are people that call this an epidemic.
That's correct.
So what is it about this incredibly high incidence of diabetes in the last decade?
It is not only in the States. It's all over the world. These days we observe explosive growth of diabetes incidence all over the world. So for the last 10 years, even children, a lot of children get diabetes. So this is a global epidemic.
Right, right. And so we're going to talk a little bit more about this upsurge later in the show. But in the meantime, I've heard statistics reporting that 45% increase in childhood diabetes. Is this correct?
That's what I heard. And in China, half of new diabetic patients are children. And then in Japan, 21% of all children are diabetic. So we are talking about something very serious here.
Yes, yes. It's very, very high. So, Dr. Kim, for those of us that don't have diabetes, can you explain to us what diabetes is?
Diabetes is basically a person's ability to metabolize carbohydrate is impaired.
Right.
So basically blood sugar does not get burnt inside the muscle. It stays in the blood. Of course, you observe high blood sugar in the blood. So that's what we say diabetes is.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And we've all heard these terms, type 1 and type 2. Yeah. Can you explain the difference for us?
Yeah. Basically, type 1 is for certain reasons such as what we call autoimmune process. For any reason, pancreas of a person does not produce insulin. So they have to rely on insulin injections every day. So, but in the meantime, type 2 diabetes is even though the pancreas produces insulin, it's not sufficient, or even though a sufficient amount of insulin is produced, it is not used efficiently because body resists its own insulin.
Right.
So type 1, type 2 are different like that.
Right. And so which type is more common?
Type 2 definitely.
Type 2.
Yeah, 90% of
90% of cases. Okay. And type 2 I've often heard referred to as adult onset diabetes.
Because traditionally we observe the type 2 diabetes happens in people's middle age, in their old ages. But these days, as I just mentioned, as more and more children get diabetic, that is a wrong name anymore.
So a bit of a misnomer with
it's
that.
It's misnomer, yeah.
So Dr. Kim, what is it about childhood diabetes that is so bad?
Because for a few reasons, diabetes is basically a progressive disease. Therefore, if a person gets diabetic at the early stage of their life, they are getting more and more serious at the later stage of their life.
Right.
Another reason, which is very serious, is if people begin to use these pharmaceutical drugs in their teens,
right,
they begin to lose these pharmaceutical drugs begin to lose their effectiveness over time. So in their late 20s, in their 30s, these drugs begin to lose their effectiveness. So they have to use more dosages, or they have to rely on insulin. But even these, they begin to lose their effectiveness. So in their 30s, in their early 30s, they will face this terminal stage of diabetes where no drugs, no injection work, and then they just will begin to experience blindness amputation, kidney failure. So, in 10 years, this children's diabetes epidemic, if this thing continues, in 10 years, the world is going to face a global crisis here.
This is serious.
This is serious.
Yes. So we'll talk more about the pharmaceutical drugs a bit later. But in the meantime, I've heard that people saying children outgrow diabetes. Is this correct?
Absolutely not true. Nothing is
Not
further
true.
from the truth. Children don't grow out of diabetes. They don't outgrow diabetes. It's progressive disease. They're getting worse and worse. So it's just a wishful thinking. That's not true.
Strictly wishful thinking. No cases of children growing out of diabetes then. So what is it about diabetes that is so difficult to fight?
Oh, diabetes is basically involves a certain inherent problem in your metabolism. So there are certain reasons why this vicious cycle continues. For example, for diabetes people, as I said, the blood sugar does not get burnt inside the muscle, right? The muscle are constantly experiencing malnutrition. Therefore, muscle transmits the signal to brain that I need more food, I need more food.
I'm hungry.
While the foods are already, too much of foods are already in the system.
Right.
At the same time, this extra insulin that remains in the blood, that also signals the same signal, hunger signal. Also, this extra insulin turns this extra blood sugar into fat. So there are certain reasons why these diabetic people cannot control their metabolism as easily as ordinary people do.
Right. Which sounds like it leads probably to weight problems.
That's correct.
Right.
And then the weight problem and obesity and diabetes, these are two sides of the same coin.
So they're connected.
Yeah,
They're connected.
70% or to 80% of obese people have diabetes, and 70% to 80% people of diabetic people have difficulty in control their weight.
So they're very connected.
They are coming from the same root.
Yeah. So, Dr. Kim, I've also heard diabetes referred to as the silent killer.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Because even though you have diabetes, you don't feel acute pain right away until you reach this terminal stage where you have all the complications surface. Until then, you don't actually feel this high blood sugar.
So what is that length of time leading up to it? You say when you first have diabetes, it sounds like you might not even know that you have diabetes before the symptoms show. Is that correct?
But even before the diagnosis, according to the statistics, once a person is diagnosed as diabetic, it's quite likely that 7 years before the diagnosis,
7 years.
Yeah, onset already started. And then statistically, even though individual case varies, statistically, every 10 years, we expect to see the rise of about 100 milligrams per deciliter. This progresses.
It sounds incredibly progressive.
Yeah.
And I'm curious about the connection like with hereditary or genetics. So for instance, if my mother or my uncle or maybe even my grandmother had diabetes, does that make me more predisposed to diabetes?
Yeah, some people suspect that there is a diabetic gene, but according to my knowledge, we haven't found that particular diabetic gene, but we know that there's a genetic disposition. So basically, if a parent is diabetic, the likelihood of children getting diabetic rises by 10%, becoming 40%.
Right.
And if two parents are diabetic, likelihood of children getting diabetic becomes 50%. If one sibling is diabetic, then 70%.
So it increases rapidly with more people in your family that have diabetes.
Therefore, my point is even before actually diabetes hits a person, if you see that genetic disposition around yourself, you should take actions right away.
So be aware.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so somebody who has diabetes, what are they doing now to control this disease?
Right now, basically, there are three things they do.
Right.
At first, they try to control their blood glucose by diet and exercise, which is very difficult. Later on, we'll elaborate why it's unrealistic to expect people to control their blood glucose by just diet and exercise. And secondly, if diet and exercise doesn't work, they rely on pharmaceutical drugs. If that doesn't work, they rely on insulin injection. If insulin injection doesn't work, then people are facing despair.
So there's no hope.
No hope.
So when you're talking about the pharmaceutical drugs, are there any kind of side effects involved with that?
Exactly. Every pharmaceutical drug have inherent risk. But for this diabetes drug, even though they are over a short period of time, they are very valuable for their therapeutic value.
So they do something positive in the fight against diabetes.
Yeah, they control blood glucose temporarily. They're very good for that, but they're good only for that. So over time, they lose their effectiveness. So after 7 years,
yeah, you mentioned 7 years.
Yeah.
They start losing
10
their
years,
effectiveness.
even though people increase the dosage, it doesn't work. So at that time, even though it doesn't help to control blood sugar, it only have this horrible side effects: liver failure, kidney failure, brain, heart, just name it.
So it sounds like at this point, with those things that you're listing off there, that they sound worse than the disease of diabetes itself.
Oh, some people even argue that the half of the kidney failure of diabetic patients are actually from these drugs, not from diabetes. So we are talking about, we just don't know. We reach a certain point where we don't know which one is worse.
Which one is worse?
Yeah.
Right. So it all sounds rather hopeless. And I've heard people say that there is no cure for diabetes. So in that case, we may as well just befriend this disease. What do you have to say about that?
I came to this show to disagree with that opinion. I know of a few actually quite effective, quite safe, long-term solutions to the question, to the problems of diabetes. There are many, treatment, natural treatment, which are very safe, which have permanent effects, very good treatments. So I just disagree completely with such an assertion that there's no hope. No, there is hope. And then I disagree when people say we have to be friends with the diabetes. They're your enemy. It is your enemy. It is not your friend.
Right. So, Dr. Kim, it sounds like you've got some more interesting information to give us. In the meantime, let's take a short break.
我姓李，名叫李偉偉，今年60歲。我住了加拿大 Richmond， 我已經有13年那個糖尿病，所以呢，就經常覺得精神呢唔夠，而且呢，就那個皮膚呢就比較痕，而且呢，食藥呢都唔係好好，胃口都唔好。但是我食咗呢個 Uratin 3個禮拜以後，就發覺自己精神呢好咗好多，而且呢。皮膚痕癢呢都減輕咗，胃口呢都好好，而且呢呢個自己 test 呢個血糖嘅成分呢，從12呢降到8，所以呢個情況呢都應該講都幾好，就咁樣。
Well, I had some form of food poisoning that refluxed and attacked the trachea, and because of that, I was drinking soft drink by the gallon, ice lollies, ice cream, anything, but I couldn't bear solid food. Consequently, lost a lot of weight, and finally this became so bad I went to my local doctor, and she said, well, we'll do a routine blood count anyway. Results came back. I had a glucose level of 23, which shocked me rigid. Well, when I started taking this Elliotine, I suddenly found my eyesight was improving. It has improved so much, and I can honestly say this, I have now been able to put aside my glasses. I just don't need them. My eyesight is better than it was 40 years ago. All of the symptoms have gone, blood sugar level is down, and I've been on Elliotine for about 6 weeks, and this, I am sure, is what's brought those changes about.
Thank you, Derek. That's a good result. Well done.
I'm very, very humbly proud to be able to say that I'm sure that the Elliotine has done the job.
Thank you, Derek.
And thank you.
Welcome back. My guest today has been Dr. Kim, who's a PhD from MIT. Dr. Kim, thanks again for being with us. And we're talking about natural methods for fighting diabetes. And during the break, Dr. Kim, you spoke about something called P700. Can you tell us more about what that is?
Yes, P700 is a name for the invention invented by University of Calgary a long time ago, 20 years ago. So P700 is basically based on natural herbs, and then there are tremendous reports about its effects and its safety.
So are you the inventor of P700?
I'm not the inventor.
So what is your relationship to it then?
About 11 years ago. At that time, I was a professor at the University of Alberta, which is the neighbor of University of Calgary. And then I was a professor of finance. And I started my own financing company, and which became successful. And then government of Alberta, provincial government of Alberta invited me to invest in this technology. So I'm an investor in the technology, not the inventor of the technology.
Right. So you're backing this, basically.
Yes, I'm trying to.
Yeah. So Dr. Kim, tell us about P700. What are its origins? How did it come to be?
Oh, it started. Everything started about 20 years ago. There was a Malaysian lady, 70-year-old lady, who was living in Calgary. Seriously diabetic, very frail with all these complications of diabetes. Kidney failure, her kidneys were not functioning at all.
Right.
And then infection, gangrene infection was so serious, so they had to they have to amputate both of her legs.
Wow.
So she was checked into the hospital for the surgery.
Right. So she was facing the amputation of both legs?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I gather that's not the end of the story.
Yeah.
Go on.
So this lady refused to have the operation. She decided to have at least some life with dignity rather than have a bit longer remaining life with both legs amputated.
Right.
So she just refused the operation and checked herself out. And she went back to her own native country, Malaysia.
Malaysia,
Yeah.
right.
And then she tried all kinds of this folklore, herbal, anything, because she
had nothing to lose.
Nothing to lose.
Right.
But the story becomes interesting when she came back.
Because what happened?
After 6 months, she came back completely cured. Kidney problems gone, diabetes gone, gangrene gone.
This is incredible.
So that's obviously the response of this university. So they just couldn't believe what they saw. So they begin to study the treatments, the methods.
Everything that she'd done while she was in Malaysia.
That's correct. And then, from a few candidates, an herb surfaced as the most likely candidate.
So they came down with the one that they felt was the real cause of her amazing healing.
Yeah, that's correct. And then at that time, there was a nurse who were observing this whole process, and she herself was a seriously diabetic, and she had to take 30 painkillers a day. You know that the diabetic people whole body aches, right? So she just wanted to offer herself as an object of this trial. So she offered, try it on me. So they tried these herbs on her. She got completely cured.
So she had the same results.
Same results. And then they started animal studies. They studied pharmacological studies. They did toxicity test, and they did clinical test. And then provincial government of Alberta got involved.
Right. So it caught their notice because obviously this was big. This was big news.
Yeah. And then the institute that started this invention is a very prestigious diabetic research in North America. So.
This is at the University of Calgary?
Yeah, and then that particular institute is called Julia McFarlane Center of Diabetic Studies.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
and then from then on, the government of Alberta invited me to invest in to commercialize this invention. So in the beginning, all this development happened at the university, but after our company took over this invention, the development happened in our company.
Yeah,
That's what happened.
So these are incredible results, Dr. Kim.
That's
and
correct.
I mean, I'm curious, what are people saying about this?
Oh, headlines in Asian countries, headline news media coverages, and then the Chinese Diabetic Association called this ideal cure. Korean Diabetic Association calls it breakthrough cure. Doctors after doctors. Right now, even without any advertisement, we have about 50,000 users.
So people are excited about this. This is generating a lot of excitement.
And then a lot of TV coverages, and people are excited.
So what are the doctors saying? What's the medical community here saying?
Oh, they are, when we first started, people were skeptical. I can understand that.
What was the skepticism about?
Because up until 10 years ago, there was a kind of a general skepticism in North America that anything herbal is just not really scientific, but not anymore.
Right, that's changed dramatically now.
Yeah, after the studies after studies, right now it is already an established science. So right now, thousands of doctors are very open-minded toward this herbal treatment, and about our particular product, the leaderships of American Diabetic Associations recommend this treatment to their own patients. Many doctors are using this product on themselves. Right now, there is even a forum of doctors in which they exchange their first-hand clinical experiences about this product. So doctors are excited about this product too.
Sounds like there's a lot of credibility. And Dr. Kim, I'm curious, what are the pharmaceutical companies saying about this?
Oh, right now we have offers of distributorship from the largest pharmaceutical company of China, largest pharmaceutical company in Korea, and second largest pharmaceutical company in Taiwan.
So these people are taking this very seriously and coming on board with you.
Yeah, they want to distribute this product in their own countries. But
what about closer to home?
We were once offered buying out. So basically, the largest pharmaceutical company in the world, they put quite sizable cash on the table, and then they tried to buy us out. So we refused it. But
what was your hesitation based on?
I was concerned that they were trying to buy this technology and try to shelve it so that...
it's going to be in direct competition with their pharmaceutical drugs.
It's called predatory acquisition.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So they offered $25 million if I sign right there, and then annual revenues. But compared with billions of dollars they invest in their researches, getting rid of these competitors, superior competitors, by putting $25 million is a very smart move, but I didn't agree to.
Just the cost of doing business at that level.
That's correct.
Yeah. So Dr. Kim, I'm aware of a Medi-Report study that was done through the University of Calgary. Was it done over a 20-year period on this P700?
Oh, Medi-Report is reports about the study. Medi-Report is not the University of Calgary study.
Thank you.
But it reports about the, several studies done on this product.
Right, right.
So yes, it's 20 more years, and then clinical studies and at various universities.
So how does P700 differ from the current treatments that we talked about earlier?
Basically, there are a few fundamental differences. While these pharmaceutical drugs and insulin injections are just for temporary control of blood sugar, P700 addresses fundamental problem. We are talking about reversal of diabetes. So people becoming normal. 70% of users become normal. So after they become normal, they don't have to use pharmaceutical drugs. They don't have to use insulin injection. They don't even have to use this P700 either. So we are talking about fundamental changes versus temporary control. That's one difference. Second, but still probably this is more important for some people, this is safe.
No side effects.
No side effects. And then actually all the ingredients are classified as foods in Southeast Asian countries.
So food, not drugs.
Food, not drugs. And then, therefore, safety-wise, this is incomparable compared with all these horrendous side effects of these pharmaceutical drugs and insulin injections.
Right.
So this is safe. Thirdly, no resistance develops. So as time passes, actually people reduces the dosage of this product because people become normal.
So you wean off it, actually.
Wean off, yeah. Not as opposed to increasing
right.
the dosage of these pharmaceutical drugs and insulin.
Right. Well, but Dr. Kim, I'm curious about how P700 brings about permanent change. That's what you're talking about,
That's
yes?
correct. Let me tell you what it does. Among others, we'll just elaborate more on other things P700 does. But let me tell you that P700 shows that beta cells is the cells in the pancreas that produce the insulin.
Right.
The numbers and strength of beta cells improve. Therefore, that's a molecular level change. Fundamental change. It doesn't disappear overnight. Secondly, with the use of P700, insulin resistance is gone. We call it upregulation of insulin resistance. Therefore, that's also fundamental molecular level change.
You're not talking about symptomatic relief here.
No. So once those changes happen, it doesn't disappear. Therefore, even months or even years after they become normal, they stay normal. Therefore, we call normalizer.
Right.
People became normal.
It sounds like, I mean, you're dancing around a word here. Cure is what it sounds like.
It depends on what you mean by cure. If cure means we identify one or two simple causes of a disease, and you get rid of those simple one or two identified causes, if that is meant by cure, P700 is not a cure. But if a person takes a certain treatment or a certain food or a certain drug, and then people becomes normal, if we call that a cure, we can call this a cure. But
Right.
it's a matter of semantics.
Right, that's what it sounds like. But
Yeah.
it sounds like it's making a huge difference in a lot of people's lives from what you're talking about.
That's correct.
Yeah. And Dr. Kim, you mentioned earlier that there were numerous natural herbal methods for treating diabetes.
Yeah,
So
so
what are the other methods?
Right now, there are about more than 2,000 herbs and these plant-based medicines, drugs that are shown to be effective to control blood glucose. But what I'm saying is, it is not true that all herbal products are safe. All herbal products.
So of these 2,000 herbs you mentioned, they're not all necessarily going to
Yeah,
work
and
for
then
you.
I say 1,900 of them are toxic. So there are very dangerous herbs.
So this is not something to just enter into lightly.
Yeah, for example, some are toxic, even fatal. So, and other herbs, actually most of the diabetic herbs we see on the market in North America, they are anti-diabetic. They lower blood glucose by inducing artificial indigestion, meaning that if people, even if people take food, it doesn't get digested. Therefore, you see lower blood glucose. I think that's not healthy. But anyhow, if you just look at the end results, it lowers blood glucose.
Right.
But it lowers blood glucose at a very high price.
Right, it sounds like it. So Dr. Kim, we're going to talk a little bit more later about some of those natural methods you've referred to.
Mm-hmm.
But in the meantime, when we're talking about alternative medications
Mm-hmm.
like these, what sort of criteria or standards exist?
Oh, whenever you are approaching this natural treatment or herbal treatment, I think you can use 6 or 7 criteria. Let me just go slowly here.
Sure.
One, the effects should be proven scientifically. A few anecdotes is just not sufficient.
Right. It's got to be more comprehensive.
Yeah,
than
I
that.
saw a person, I met a person who is okay. No, that's not sufficient.
Right.
There should be at least statistically reliable studies. Okay? And then that study should be compared with the control group. So we should know whether this is just placebo effect.
Right.
So first criteria you should look at is it just anecdotal or the effects are proven scientific?
Right, right.
Secondly, it should be safe. So if it has toxicity, it has side effect,
Right.
then you should get rid of it from your
So
candidate.
it's measured for all
Yeah.
those categories.
No resistance. So it is also quite wrong to believe that herbal treatments do not develop resistance. Though it's not true.
So some do.
Some do. Some do. They have to increase those. Some are even more serious than.
And then the pharmaceutical.
That's correct.
Right.
So that's one criteria. And another criteria is this is very important. We should know how this works. Otherwise, we don't. If we don't know how it works.
You're playing a bit of Russian roulette there, then.
Yeah.
It's a gamble.
Yeah. So we call it modes of action.
Right.
Yeah. So modes of action should be identified. So unless, because all these herbal treatments should be used in conjunction with the traditional pharmaceutical treatment in the beginning.
Right.
Therefore, unless you know how this works, you cannot really combine the traditional treatment and this alternative treatment.
Right.
So
right.
you should know how it works.
Right.
And then also it should be available to everybody. If it is too rare, then we are talking about something which is not available to us. So
What's the point?
what's the point?
Exactly.
And then we should also look at whether its change is fundamental or long-term. We should look at that too. Because all herbal treatments, if they are rightly or they are correctly combined or correctly used, they are supposed to bring long-term fundamental changes.
It's not in here for the short cure that you're
Yeah.
talking about long term.
That's correct.
Right.
And then another thing, another criteria we should look is whether it addresses the whole body, whether it not only symptomatic
Right.
treatment is
Sure.
valuable, but all these herbal treatments are supposed to mildly addresses the general health of the whole
Yes.
body. So you should look at that too. So if you look at all these criteria, basically you can select right herbal treatment for you.
Right. So that's good to know. So there are some pretty good guidelines there
That's correct.
for selecting herbal
Yeah.
remedies.
So if you apply this all criteria, it is not every day you find the herbal treatment that meets all these 7 criteria.
Right. So Dr. Kim, those are some really helpful guidelines
That's
for when we're
correct.
talking about these alternative
That's correct.
medications. But let's go back to P700 for a moment. You said during the break that people that don't have diabetes can take this drug as well. Or, sorry, this drug, it's not. It's a natural remedy.
That's correct.
Say more about that.
For example, myself, I don't have diabetes. My children, they don't have diabetes, but we all take this. The reason is, first, let's talk about pancreas. If we keep our beta cells healthy,
Right.
and then about the insulin resistance, if we keep our insulin resistance upregulated, basically we are preventing diabetes.
Right.
Yeah. So that's the fundamental mechanism that leads to the diabetes. If we cut those mechanisms before it becomes diabetic, of course we are preventing. Actually, we did quite a bit of study here. We at first made many animals become diabetic. So there's a mechanism that triggers the animal to become diabetic. And then one group, this P700 was given. The other control group was not given. And then that group that was not given this P700, they all became diabetic, while 70% of the animals that were given P700, they didn't become diabetic. Anyhow, all the ingredients are regarded good for your health anyhow. So I take this P700 as a general health promotion, not particularly for diabetes.
So general health
Yes.
and preventative
Yeah, that's correct.
for diabetes.
That's correct.
So fascinating. It's got tons of application here. So Dr. Kim, let's backtrack a little bit. We talked earlier on the show about some of the signs and symptoms of diabetes. Some of the symptoms that I've been reading about, sexual dysfunction, it's a big issue with diabetes.
Especially male sexual dysfunction. 70% of male impotence comes from diabetes. And then when a person is diagnosed as diabetic, 50% of them, I'm talking male patient, 50% of them become sexually impotent at some point. So when they see doctors to discuss their problems in their sex life, the first question doctor asks is, do you have diabetes?
Right.
That's correct. And then imagine, the male sexual function is basically composed of the two aspects. One is nerves, and the other is the blood circulation is in capillaries. In the capillary, blood doesn't get circulated smoothly once you have diabetes. Blood becomes sticky, and capillary become clogged, and then nerves are damaged. Of course, you have problems in sexual life. But this P700, people, because of this tremendous effects in the cleansing of these capillaries, and then these nerve damages are restored. Therefore, quite ironically, the restoration of their sexual function is the most frequently heard testimonies.
Right. Well, and I would think, too, that it would probably be more important to be treating diabetes than taking Viagra in this case.
Viagra is dangerous for some people. Viagra is basically the squeezing the capillaries. So
if you're a diabetic, that's not a good combination.
Yeah, so diabetes people tended to have this coronary disease 400% more likely than ordinary people.
So they're already at risk.
Yeah, on the top of that, you squeeze your capillaries, arteries. Basically, we are talking about some serious dangers here.
Right, right. And Dr. Kim, what about fatigue?
Fatigue, chronic fatigue. As I said, for diabetic people, muscles don't get enough nutrition. So muscles are actually lack of nutrition. So they feel constantly fatigued.
Right. So this is going to be people really dragging themselves out of bed in the morning.
They lose muscle mass because they don't get nutrition. Also, as I said, because of this frequent urination and thirst, they tended to wake up during the night a few times.
Right. So they're not sleeping well.
Also, whole body aches. The quality of sleep is gone. So they wake up very tired next morning, and then they live a very tired day, another day.
Yeah.
So, and then keep on having a poor sleep next day. So this thing continues. So
really,
it's fatigue.
really impacts quality of life in a huge way.
And then good news is the P700, invariably, without exception, people say they just recovered their energies in their life.
So their energy levels dramatically improve as a result of using P700.
Yeah. So if we know how P700 works, that's a very natural conclusion.
So it makes sense from what you've described.
Yes.
Yeah. And so what's the correlation between diabetes and weight loss or weight gain, I should say?
Do you remember the visual cycle we just mentioned just a moment ago? Because of that, once you have diabetes, it's almost impossible to control weight.
You've got everything against you.
Yeah. And then if you are obese, it is almost impossible to control diabetes. So I'm quite frustrated when people say, when you have diabetes, you should control your weight. It's just
how do you do it?
How do you do it? You're just repeating the question. It's not suggesting a solution.
Right.
So for diabetes people, there are inherent reasons why they find it so difficult to control their weight. So there should be something else except in addition to saying you should control diet. It's just repeating the question.
But what's the impact of P700 on controlling weight?
Actually, when the former president of American Diabetes Association, when he reviewed the studies of this P700, he recommended that, Dr. Kim, you should develop this product as a weight control product rather than diabetes product. He jokingly, he said the market for weight control product is 10 times larger than a diabetes product. But we decided not to because, in order to compete in weight control market, you have to control with all those outrageous claims, something as 10 pounds in 1 week. L-leotin works very slowly.
And L-leotin is the other name for P700.
Sorry. The P700 in different countries is being called differently.
Right. What's behind the name P700, incidentally?
they repeated and constantly modified the formula through 700 or more experiments.
Okay, so that makes sense with the name, right?
So in China, P700 is called happy pancreas.
Happy pancreas.
Yeah, happy pancreas. And then
right to the point, happy pancreas.
Yeah. And then in Korea, it's called Formula M.
So different names, different type of marketing.
So
I would guess.
they say M stands for mysterious formula. But in North America, some people call L-leotin.
Right,
Yeah.
right, and that's the name I've heard. And so, Dr. Kim, you're talking about people taking this formula when they're not diabetic. You're talking about taking it generally. What about children? Is it safe for children to take?
Correct. That's the point I'd really like to emphasize. As far as I know, P700 is the only product which is safe for children. We tested this P700 with 50 times of the dosage. It's still safe. So, and then, you know, as I kept on saying, these are classified as food in Southeast Asian countries.
Are the regulations more stringent for food than for drugs?
That's correct. That's correct. And then, therefore, safety is proven there. So, from the viewpoint of parent, any treatment for diabetes of their children, safety should be the first concern.
Right,
and then,
absolutely.
yeah, and then that's the point I really like to emphasize here, safety.
Sure. Yeah, so Dr. Kim, are you talking about a medical discovery here? Because it sure sounds like that.
It depends on what the medical discovery is. Medical discovery as opposed to dietary discovery, medical discovery as opposed to lifestyle discovery. I just don't know what to call, but I'm just telling you, here's the product. 50,000 people used it. They got tremendously happier. And then scientists tested this. Right. So I just don't know what to call. But
so whatever you call it, it's having an impact.
Impact, yes,
Yeah.
that's correct.
And so I grabbed some of these bottles here. I mean, these look like, they look a lot like prescription drugs. I'm curious about the 3 different formulas. Can you tell us a little bit about why it comes in 3 different formulas like
yes, this formula is a morning formula. Morning formula helps the body to regulate the speed of the breakdown of carbohydrate. Therefore, usually diabetic patients experience a sudden peak of blood glucose levels immediately after their meals.
Right.
But with a morning formula, that
It's
peak is flat.
Smooth it all out.
Yeah. So morning formula has
Right.
that function.
Right.
And this afternoon formula, basically cleanses. So afternoon formula cleanses the old insulin receptors.
Right.
Insulin receptor is what regulates how efficiently body uses this insulin, right?
So it's making it all more efficient.
Young.
Young.
Yeah.
We all want to hear about that. We all want to hear it's going to make us young.
Yeah. So old senile insulin receptors are washed out, cleansed out of the body, and
Right.
then in those places, young, stronger, functioning insulin receptors come out.
Right.
So, and then a night formula basically provides necessary nutrients for pancreas, and then with this supply of good nutrients to pancreas, beta cells rejuvenate.
Right. So you're creating a happy pancreas.
That's correct.
So I'm curious about you know what the results of these. You've talked briefly about that, but how long do these results actually stick?
You mean once people become normal?
Once people have been using these products, I think you said there was about a 4 to 6 month ramp-up time.
At least.
At
Because
least.
yeah, I'd like to emphasize that point.
Please do.
This is different from traditional pharmaceutical drugs. Traditional pharmaceutical drugs works like this.
Right, instantaneously.
Instantly. Herbal treatment, no. It takes months. So people should be really patient.
So this is not instant, miraculous. You're going to see change overnight.
We are not talking about anything miraculous here.
Right.
We are talking about sensible, commonsensical approach. So if you use 4 to 6 months, of course individual results vary. If you 6 months, for example, for those new patients, 70% of new patients become normal, and then they stay normal.
70%.
70.
That's
70%.
extremely high.
We are happy about that.
I'll say you're happy about that. That's amazing. And so, again, how long are these results going to last? So you've taken your 4 to 6 months. These are now impacting you.
Once a person becomes normal, as long as that person maintains a healthy lifestyle, it stays there forever.
So when you talk about healthy lifestyle, are you talking about what's really achievable, or are you talking about something we have to go really above and beyond for?
Commonsensical healthy lifestyle.
So something we're all capable of.
All capable of.
You remain, as you say, normal.
That's correct.
That's incredible.
We are very happy. We are very happy about the results.
I should say. And I'm curious too, you talked earlier about chronic fatigue, which so many people complain about these days. It's really, really common. You talked about a dramatic increase. We're going to notice a dramatic increase when we use this product.
Yes, and then actually that, do you remember we just talked about unrealistic difficulty of diabetic patients maintaining healthy exercise
Right,
at diet
yes.
state? Yeah. So with this a lot higher level of energy, now they can do
Now
exercise.
they can actually have a shot at this healthy lifestyle.
And then because of this upregulated insulin receptor, their unnatural appetite is subdued.
Right.
Now
so
they
all
have a
these
chance.
things working together.
Now they have a chance. So before, without some products like L-lutein, requiring them of diet and exercise, that's unrealistically burdensome requirements. But with L-lutein, it is possible.
Right. Okay. So last question. Side effects?
No,
Nothing.
nothing. So so far we have not heard of any side effects.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Kim. We're going to take a short break.
I heard about L-lutein from somebody in Connecticut when I was there in 1999.
Okay.
And they told me about yourself.
Okay.
And I was very interested in this product, which could reverse, apparently, diabetes. I didn't believe it, of course, but I thought I'd come across on the way back to Australia. And
I see.
As you remember, I came to see you from Los Angeles.
Yeah, it just sounds like yesterday, but it's already 4 years ago.
So 4 years, been busy 4 years, and in that 4 years we've used the L-lutein in Australia. And
Did you yourself use it?
I've used it myself and
Okay.
my wife because we find that it helps us generally in our health, and even though we keep ourselves very fit, it's improved that even an edge too, which is quite remarkable.
Oh, I see.
L-lutein has a remarkable ability to level out the blood glucose levels without any severe drops.
Okay.
And that is very nice.
Okay.
And it also has a remarkable ability to do it so quickly too. I can comparatively quickly, yet with a slow drop, maintaining a slow drop. And also has the ability to reverse diabetes entirely, which is really unheard of, you know, and quite remarkable.
Yeah, I'm John Coman, father of young Ben Coman, and I'm here to talk with Michael today about the L-lutein.
Yeah, so how long, what happened to Ben? It was 6 weeks, I think, after he had a car accident when he was 3.
That's right, that he developed type 1 diabetes.
Yeah, and how many shots did he have to control him at that time?
When he went into hospital, he was having, you know, about 3 to 4 shots a day trying to control it.
Yes.
Of insulin.
Plus or including the AccuRapid shots for quick control.
Yes.
And how did you hear about L-lutein in the first place, John?
A friend of ours, Greg Buchanan, who was Ben's football coach at the time, introduced us to the L-lutein product with a Q10 product. And once we tried the L-lutein, we sort of got dramatic results.
Yeah, but Ben didn't have to have so many nasty bricks during the day.
Yeah, for the first day, it had a dramatic effect on the fast-acting insulin that we used to have to introduce him to, and then over that week, the slow-acting insulin that we used to have to inject him to became less required as well, and it got to the stage where for a good couple of months we didn't have to inject him with insulin at all, just from being on the L-lutein.
That's so good.
Yeah. He has the fast-acting and the slow-acting insulin combined in the one needle in the mornings, and then also combined again before dinner.
Before dinner.
So he's only having 2 shots a day.
Okay. And you haven't been on Eliation for about a year.
Yeah, that'd be right.
So we're going to start again this week.
Yep.
已經用過動物同人體嘅試驗，已經證明到喺美國、加拿大、中國、韓國發售。Eroton 經過人類嘅研究，有10個唔同嘅病患者，佢哋都有已經10年嘅以上嘅糖尿，血糖已經達到380度。經過6個月嘅時間，用 Eroton 可以好清楚顯示幫到佢哋，可以降到安全嘅水平。從實驗證明 ，Eroton 使用嘅已經係冇令到佢冇產生副作用。Eroton 可以絕對幫到佢哋。
Welcome back. You're watching a special edition of The Truth About Diabetes. And my guest today is Dr. Kim, PhD from MIT. Thanks again for being with us, Dr. Kim. Dr. Kim, is P700 the only natural remedy in the fight against diabetes that you would recommend?
For today's show, I'm glad to introduce 2 more. The 6-flavor tea, which is a traditional Chinese
6-flavor tea.
Another tongue twister. This is from India. Pterocarpus marsupium.
Okay, I'll work on that one as well. So you've mentioned 2 different remedies.
That's correct.
Let's start with the 6.
You can also call it Indian quinoa.
Indian quinoa.
That's better.
Okay, let's work with that one. So let's start with the 6-taste tea that you talked about. Can you tell us a little bit? You said it's a traditional Chinese formulation.
It has been used in Asia for many thousand years.
It's very old.
Very old, and then it has been recognized as a very effective diabetes treatment by many governments in Asia. It is recorded in most pharmacopoeia of the oldest Asian countries.
And pharmacopoeia is
It's
what?
an official recipe for drug making. So if you follow the procedures and ingredients of this pharmacopoeia, basically they give the approval almost automatically. So it's like an official cookbook.
Right, okay, so the cookbook of herbal remedies. So Dr. Kim, for the viewers watching, how do we make 6-taste tea?
6 basically is composed of 6 herbs, 6 taste.
6 taste, 6 herbs, that's logical.
That's correct. And then they are very cheap. It is very common herbs.
Very available, very inexpensive. Where would I go to? A Chinese herbal
So
store?
if you take the list from the internet site we are showing here.
Right, so stay tuned. We'll be showing that website and you can get the specific information.
Yeah, very common. Even without taking the list of herbs, if you go to a Chinese herb store and say, can I get the herbs for 6-flavored tea, they know.
So you get the herbs, you go home, what do you do with them?
And then basically you ground it in a home blender.
Or like a coffee grinder, possibly?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then 10 grams of these herbs each time.
So 10 grams would be like what, a heaping teaspoon?
A bit larger teaspoon.
Okay.
And then
so almost a tablespoon.
Yeah, and then you put it in almost boiling hot water.
Okay.
10 minutes. Here we go.
So steep it for 10 minutes and then it's ready to drink.
During the break I made one, please, would you just...
Okay, you've got a sample for me. So this is the 6-taste tea that I'm going to taste here. Wow, it tastes like a really fresh herbal tea.
It is a fresh herbal tea.
I guess that's what it is.
Yeah, and then if you have if you take that tea over a long period of time, you get great results.
So there's some long-standing results here.
Every herbal treatments are basically a long-term treatment.
And now I noticed there's a lot of sediment in the tea. Am I supposed to eat that?
Some people find the taste very awful, but you get accustomed to it. But if you don't take the sediment, you can rebrew it. At least.
So once you've consumed the tea, you reuse the sediment again in the next batch?
Yeah, and then you can rebrew it 2 to 3 times.
So this is becoming very economical because you've already said the herbs are extremely inexpensive.
So 1 month supply, you can get $10 and most $20.
Okay, so 1 month supply of a natural diabetes remedy, $20.
$20.
Can't beat that.
And then I'm excited about this formula, not because of its cheap price, but because of its safety.
So say more about that.
Compared with pharmaceutical drugs, this is way, way safer. It doesn't have any side effects.
Hold on a second here, because this is incredible. What you're saying, that this natural remedy, this formulation you can make yourself for $20 a month is safer than a pharmaceutical prescription
That's what
you're
I'm
getting
saying.
from your doctor.
A lot safer. They don't have this herbal treatment have no side effects.
So no side
and
effects.
And then this formula is known to have no resistance developed. So
you don't have to increase the dosage.
No.
So okay, let's talk turkey here. What about scientific evidence?
There's an irony here, because this formula has been known so well. People don't see too much need to prove it again scientifically.
So no economic
reasons,
benefit is what I'm hearing.
So patent is impossible because everybody already knows it.
Right.
So because this is not patentable, nobody wants to invest. So because this is too well known, ironically, there's a bit little science about this product.
Right.
But compared with this 6-flavor tea, P700 is very well studied.
Right.
Very
That's
well
what I was going to ask. How does this 6-taste tea compare with P700?
In terms of the quality and quantity of scientific research, P700 is way, way above this 6-flavor tea. And then, especially the long-term effect of P700 on diabetes is well established, while the studies on the long-term effect of this 6-flavor tea is still some way to go before very well established.
Sounds like there's just not a lot of money there to support
That's
doing
correct.
further studies.
Yeah, so that's the fate or many herbal treatment face actually. It is not patentable, so nobody wants to put money
But you
there.
have confidence in this 6-taste tea.
I strongly recommend.
Right.
And then the safe and cheap, no side effects.
Safe and cheap and no side effects.
Yeah,
That's
and
what
so,
we want to hear.
Therefore, before these pharmaceutical drugs, I say people should try this.
Right. Okay. So let's talk about the other remedy you mentioned briefly. I believe
Indian treatment.
Indian treatment, Pterocarpus marsupium.
You are doing very well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. So this is an Indian treatment, and you used a word on the break, Ayurvedic.
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 Ayur means in ancient Indian language called life. Vedic means from Veda, which is a way. So it's a way of life.
Way of life.
Yeah. So it's a word that describes traditional Indian medicine science.
Right. And so how does this, can I call it PMT?
Yeah, Indian Kino.
Indian Kino. So
Yeah.
how does this differ from the 6-taste tea in terms of its applicability to, you mentioned type 1 diabetes and type 2 diabetes?
Yeah, there is actually a very particular reason why I'm quite excited about this Indian Kino, PMT.
Right.
I believe some of their claims about its effect on type 1 diabetes are convincing.
Right, so we've been focusing a lot of the show on the type
2 diabetes. Yeah,
diabetes.
because P700 is mainly for type 2 diabetes.
Right, okay.
But even though
so the impact on type 1.
Yeah, even though we say P700 is for type 2 diabetes, some desperate type 1 diabetes patients actually use P700 diabetes.
And?
So far, no person has been cured of type 1 diabetes.
Nobody has become, as you say, normal.
Yeah, so there are many, 70% of the users become normal when they have type 2 diabetes.
70% type 2.
Yeah, but no one with a type 1 diabetes became normal.
Right.
But they succeeded in reducing their daily insulin requirement by 60 to 70%, which is quite
significant.
good. Yeah, but it's significant, but it's not a cure. It's not normal.
So it doesn't do the same as it does for type 2.
Yeah, P700 is basically for type 2 diabetes.
Right. Okay.
But,
so let's talk about this PMT.
Yeah,
you were saying it has an impact on type 1.
Claims of this Pterocarpus marsupium on type 1 diabetes, I have reasons to believe them. So
significant health benefit to type 1 diabetes.
That's correct. That's why I'm excited about this treatment.
Okay, so I'm hearing what you're saying about PMT and P700, and what would happen, Dr. Kim, if you blended the two products together?
That's a great idea. I don't regard these two products as competitor. They are just strong in its own area. But combining these two products, they are both safe. They are both helping greatly. Actually, a leader of Indian Diabetes Association advised me that, Dr. Kim, why don't you combine these two? Actually, that's
a good idea.
Yeah.
So stay tuned for future medical developments, potentially.
But I'm excited by this both treatment.
Right, right. So Dr. Kim, you've mentioned 6-Taste-T, PMT, and we've talked about P700 as well. Are there many other herbal formulations out
as
there?
I said, there are more than 2,000.
More than 2,000 individual herbs, and you talked before about how a lot of these herbs are actually toxic. So I'm curious then, so how can people then get more information on these herbal formulations that we haven't covered in the show today?
Before it was very difficult. Before there were not many informations, but these days situation improved. There are a lot of available already, quite available in the internet. So in the website we are introducing at the end of this show, we refer to those websites, and there are many very understandable, very well written papers how to use. Also, I mentioned this 7 criteria.
Right, you mentioned that earlier in the show.
With which we can guide through this 2,000 herbal treatments. We have to avoid certain widespread myths. All herbal treatments are safe? No. There are many fatally dangerous herbal treatments.
So this doesn't get a lot of airtime, what you're talking about, because it seems to me to be a widespread understanding that naturopathic or all herbal, all natural formulations are quite safe and benign. Well, you're saying that's not true.
That's not true. So what is not true either is that it is also wrong to believe that all natural treatments are not effective. That's also wrong. Some natural treatments are very effective, very good, but it's also wrong that all natural treatments are safe. No, some are very dangerous.
So you need to approach this topic with
common
sense and do some research. You're saying there's lots of websites. You're also mentioning that at the end of the show we're going to be showing the website that you can go to for more information specific to what you're talking about. So very interesting. So you're not a medical doctor.
I'm not a medical doctor.
And you're not here giving medical advice.
I'm not giving medical. I'm today giving a view on the recent exciting development of this natural treatment on diabetes.
Because there's a lot here to talk about, and it's been very exciting.
We are very excited about this recent development.
Absolutely, I can see why. Now, the point that you have made many times during the show, and I think it's an important point to conclude on, is that it is essential that you don't reduce or outright stop taking your medication that's being prescribed to you without consulting with your physician. In fact, consult with your physician.
That's very important. I cannot emphasize too much. Any reduction or suspension of prescription drugs should be consulted with your physician prior to the reduction of suspension. Otherwise, it can be fatally dangerous.
So talk to your physician first. Don't just stop taking your pharmaceutical drugs, even if what you've heard on the show today has you very excited. Don't just stop. Talk to your physician. That's great. So, Dr. Kim, thank you so much for being on the show. It's been so interesting.
Thank you very much.
Again, you've been watching The Truth About Diabetes. And if you have any questions, please visit the website that's listed on your screen. Dr. Kim, your interest and desire to help in this way gives us all so much more hope for diabetes.
Thank you very much for
thank you
inviting me
again
here.
for being my guest on the show today.
Thank you very much.